Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive with yours truly.
And me.
Today, we're going to be taking a look at the CrisisWatch report.
That's right.
For October 2024, focusing specifically on Latin America and the Caribbean.
That's right.
And as always, you know, there's a lot to cover in these reports.
There always is.
You know, but I think it's fair to say that this one is particularly intense.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're talking some really intense situations, and we're going to try and break it down for you all. But yeah, just to give you all a taste of what we're going to be talking about today, we're looking at Evo Morales in Bolivia, facing not only legal troubles, but also potential assassination attempts.
Yeah, that's right.
We've got a very complex situation in Colombia with ceasefires, escalating offensives, and a reinvigorated peace accord. We've got gang violence in Haiti reaching really horrific new levels.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also a new change of leadership in Mexico amidst a really escalating cartel war.
That's right. There's a lot to unpack.
It is. And so that's what we're going to do today, is try and unpack all this, give you a good sense of what's going on in these hot spots, and, you know, hopefully understand what this means for the future of the region.
That's right.
So let's jump right in. So we're going to start with the Andes region.
Right.
And specifically Bolivia.
Okay.
In Bolivia, we've got Evo Morales, who... I mean, the guy's no stranger to
he's not
to controversy, but he is once again in the middle of a pretty serious political storm.
That's right.
He's currently under investigation for some really, really serious allegations.
Yeah.
These stem back from 2015.
That's right.
We're talking rape and human trafficking of a minor.
And an arrest warrant has actually been issued.
Oh, wow.
For him, which has, as you can imagine, led to some protests.
Oh, yeah.
And roadblocks by his supporters.
Of course. Now, Morales, of course, is dismissing these accusations as politically motivated, and especially...
Which you can kind of understand.
Yeah. Well, yeah, especially with the 2025 presidential election looming.
Exactly.
But then to make matters worse...
Right.
He's also claiming to have survived an assassination attempt. He's saying that unknown gunmen opened fire on his convoy. An event. Which the current government denies any involvement in.
Right.
So, I mean, we're talking a really volatile situation.
Extremely. Yeah. Accusations are flying back and forth.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean...
It's a bit of a mess.
Is this?
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like a potential prelude.
It could be. To Morales attempting to return to power. I mean, what would that mean for Bolivia's stability?
Well, I think it's definitely a possibility. Morales is still a powerful figure in Bolivian politics.
He is.
And he has very loyal supporters. Yeah. If he were to return to power, it could definitely reignite some old tensions, potentially leading to a period of instability, especially given the current president's kind of opposing stance.
Yeah. And this tension isn't just, you know, contained within Bolivia's borders either, right?
Oh, no, not at all.
I mean...
We're talking about potential ripple effects throughout the whole region.
Exactly. I mean, the political climate in one country can often influence its neighbors.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, we're talking about the potential for this to impact migration patterns, economic partnerships.
Right. Even the drug trade.
Yeah, the regional drug trade.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on from Bolivia and shift gears over to Colombia, where the Petro administration is really trying to navigate this incredibly delicate peace process.
That's right. They're basically juggling several really complex situations at the moment.
Right.
They've extended a ceasefire with one faction of the EMC, which is a FARC dissident group.
Right.
But at the same time, they're actually intensifying military operations against other factions who haven't agreed to the ceasefire.
So it's like this balancing act.
It is a real balancing act.
Of appeasing some groups while using force against others.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, there's the ELN, another guerrilla group.
Right.
And they're continuing attacks.
Right.
Even though there are upcoming peace talks with the government.
So they're trying to negotiate peace.
Well, it's like they're trying to build trust and negotiate this lasting peace agreement. But at the same time, they're being attacked by the very people they're trying to negotiate with.
That's tough.
It is a tough situation.
This isn't...
And it's not like this peace process is starting from scratch.
No, not at all.
I mean, we're talking about a country that's still grappling with the legacy of the 2016 peace accord.
Exactly. So the government is trying to...
That's right. They're trying to...
breathe new life into it.
Breathe new life into that agreement with this, what they're calling a shock plan.
Okay.
And the focus of this is really on achievable short-term projects that deliver some, tangible benefits to the communities that are affected by this conflict.
So it's almost like...
Yeah, it's like fixing a broken window in a house before you tackle a complete renovation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Trying to show progress and build confidence in the process.
Exactly. But, I mean, with so many moving parts here, with so many conflicting interests, I mean, can this plan realistically succeed?
Well, that is the question, isn't it? I mean, there's a lot of skepticism and distrust on both sides.
Yeah.
And the ongoing violence is just exacerbating that.
Right. It's a reminder that...
Yeah. It really shows how, building lasting peace requires more than just signing agreements. It really demands this genuine commitment to dialogue compromise and really addressing those root causes of the conflict.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah.
Okay, so while Colombia is grappling with this, intricate peace process, Ecuador is facing a very different...
but equally concerning crisis. Escalating violence.
That's right.
President Noboa has actually declared a state of exception in several provinces due to violence linked to drug trafficking and illegal mining.
That's right. It's actually gotten so severe that state officials are actually being targeted.
I mean...
like police officers and a prosecutor have been assassinated.
That's awful.
It's a grim picture.
Yeah. And on top of that...
yeah, and there are growing concerns about Ecuador becoming a major player in the cocaine trade. There have been reports of expanding coca crops, which could, further fuel the violence and instability.
Exactly. And it kind of, it echoes challenges we see in other parts of the region.
Absolutely. Yeah. The presence of these powerful criminal organizations, involved in the drug trade, often undermines state authority and leads to this climate of fear and impunity.
And speaking of holding those in power accountable, the U.S. has recently taken a strong stance against corruption in Ecuador. They've actually banned former President Correa and his vice president from entering the country due to their alleged involvement in some shady dealings.
Yeah, that's a pretty significant diplomatic move.
Yeah.
It really sends a message about the U.S. commitment to combating corruption in the region. Yeah. But then there's this other development that kind of raises some geopolitical questions. The Constitutional Court in Ecuador has just approved the elimination of the ban on foreign military bases on their soil.
That's a major shift.
It is.
I mean, what are the implications of that?
Well, I think it's definitely something...
especially considering, the already complex dynamics in the region.
It's definitely something to watch closely.
Yeah.
It does open up possibilities for increased military cooperation with countries like the United States. But it also raises concerns about potential militarization and, the potential for Ecuador to become entangled in these regional power struggles.
So they're battling these internal threats like drug trafficking and corruption, but then they're potentially opening themselves up to greater involvement in external geopolitical dynamics.
It's a delicate balancing act for sure.
And the choices that they make in the coming months, could really have repercussions for their stability and their role in the region.
For sure.
Well, let's turn our attention now to another country where internal politics and external influences often collide. And that is Venezuela. The July presidential election has perhaps unsurprisingly added another layer of complexity to this ongoing situation.
The Carter Center's election observation mission has actually presented evidence suggesting that the opposition actually won the election. Contradicting, of course, Maduro's claims of victory. However, the Maduro government is remaining defiant.
Of course.
Refusing to acknowledge this evidence. And accusing the opposition of falsifying votes.
It's familiar, isn't it?
It is.
The strategy of denial. I mean, how does it fit into his...
It's very consistent with his approach to maintaining control. You know, discrediting opposition voices, controlling the narrative, and just clinging to power. Despite this mounting evidence. The contrary.
And it doesn't seem like he's willing to relinquish power.
No, it really suggests a resistance to any kind of democratic transition.
And unfortunately, this denial of a fair election is coupled with a very concerning crackdown on dissent. A UN watchdog has reported on mass detentions and human rights violations during the election period.
It paints a very disturbing picture of repression. It talks about, you know, these intimidation tactics aimed at silencing opposition voices and just manipulating the electoral process.
As if that wasn't enough.
And to add insult to injury, the government-controlled legislature is preparing to change electoral laws in a way that could further marginalize the opposition.
So he's further entrenching his authority rather than seeking a peaceful resolution. It seems like the UN fact-finding mission's mandate has been extended for another 2 years. So it's clear the international community is taking this seriously.
They have to. This situation has been deteriorating for years. And these recent developments could push the country even closer to the brink.
So it seems like the Andes region is facing this convergence of...
it's like all these interconnected crises, each with the potential to destabilize.
Not just individual countries, but...
Not just individual countries, but the entire area.
The whole region. I mean, it highlights the...
It really does, the fragility of peace and democracy in the region.
And what happens in one country can quickly spill over into its neighbors, creating this ripple effect of instability. So with that in mind, let's move on to the Amazon region, where a major event is about to take place amidst a backdrop of some serious security concerns. The COP16 Biodiversity Summit in Colombia. Now, this summit is a crucial platform for discussing these global environmental issues. But it's happening in a region.
And it's a region
where environmental protection often clashes with the realities of armed conflict.
That's right. And speaking of armed conflict.
Oh, gosh.
Those EMC factions you were talking about earlier, the ones involved in that delicate peace process, they've actually been threatening.
Oh, no, it was summit. Are you serious? Wow. So
it just shows how challenging it is to even address these environmental issues in a region grappling with this violence and instability.
I mean, fortunately, they have said...
They have since promised. It's like to disrupt it. But, you know, the fact that they...
the fact that they even
made the threat.
Speaks volumes.
It does, absolutely.
I mean, it kind of raises questions about how effective can these peace negotiations be if certain groups are still willing to use threats and intimidation to achieve their goals.
It really underscores the fact that achieving lasting peace requires more than just signing agreements. It requires a real shift in attitudes and behaviors. A genuine commitment to dialogue and compromise.
Well, while Colombia is navigating these security threats during the summit, Peru and Ecuador are dealing with their own set of challenges related to organized crime in the Amazon.
That's right. Peru has actually extended a state of emergency in the Loreto region, which gives the military more power to combat armed groups.
And that includes?
Including those FARC dissidents operating across the border.
So the consequences of the Colombian conflict are being felt in Peru.
Yeah, exactly. The clear example of how these crises can transcend those national boundaries.
And then meanwhile, Ecuador is also sounding the alarm about the expansion of illegal gold mining operations, which are...
which is causing environmental damage.
So it's almost like a double blow for the Amazon. You've got criminal groups fueling this deforestation, this environmental damage, but also contributing to the drug trade with those concerns about Ecuador's growing role in coca production. It's
a vicious cycle.
It is, and it's playing out in various forms.
Yeah, in different ways across the region.
And as if that weren't enough.
Yeah, and then on top of all of that, you've got
the forest fires.
You've got those devastating forest fires that are just ravaging
the Amazon, destroying these vast swaths of rainforest and
displacing indigenous communities.
It's a heartbreaking situation.
It is.
And it really highlights
the link between environmental and human security.
Right.
The Amazon rainforest is so vital in regulating our global climate, and its destruction has these far-reaching consequences for the whole planet.
Yeah, but it's the people.
Who are living there and depending on it that are really bearing the brunt of these fires.
It seems like we've covered a lot of ground in the Andes and Amazon regions, and the picture isn't very bright. There's a clear sense of interconnectedness to these crises, a feeling that they're feeding off each other.
Yeah, it's like a cycle of instability.
Yeah, and creating this cycle of instability, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And that sense of interconnectedness extends beyond just these two regions.
That's right. What we're seeing...
I mean, what we're seeing in the Andes and the Amazon is mirrored in different ways in Central America.
Yeah.
Right, in Mexico.
That's right.
So that's a great transition into the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We've got some significant developments to discuss in those areas, including a new president in Mexico and some very concerning trends in El Salvador. But first, I think we should take a moment to reflect on the gravity of what we've learned so far.
I agree. It's easy to get caught up in the geopolitical complexities and forget that these crises have a human cost. Real people are suffering as a result of this.
And we can't forget that.
That's right.
So we'll be back in a moment to delve into the challenges facing Central America and Mexico.
Yeah.
Stay with us.
We'll be right back. So the issues we've just talked about paint a pretty stark picture of the challenges facing South America.
Right.
And as we shift our focus to Central America, Mexico, we see some similar themes of instability and violence.
Absolutely. In El Salvador, for instance.
Right.
President Bukele continues this.
Yeah, he's continuing this
controversial, hardline approach to attacking gang violence.
Right.
A strategy that has raised some serious concerns about human rights abuses and the erosion of democratic institutions.
He's actually renewed the state of exception.
Oh.
For the 31st time.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah. Which, grants these extraordinary powers to the government and security forces.
And while it's undeniable that El Salvador has seen a significant drop in crime statistics under his...
At what cost?
Yeah, at what cost to human rights and democratic institutions. We're hearing reports of...
Yeah, those reports.
Arbitrary detentions, torture.
Yeah, they're deeply concerned.
Extrajudicial killings.
Yeah, they point to this dangerous pattern of authoritarianism.
And Bukele has shown this disregard for due process and a willingness to silence dissenting voices.
Yeah. He recently deployed a massive security force.
Oh, wow.
To San Marcos to target gang members.
Right.
An operation.
And that raises questions about the use of excessive force and the potential for collateral damage.
Absolutely.
And this crackdown isn't limited to...
Right, and it's not just
gangs. The Committee to Protect Journalists has issued warnings about the deteriorating state of press freedom in El Salvador, with journalists facing harassment, intimidation, even imprisonment.
Yeah, for criticizing
the government. And this is a clear sign that
it is. It shows how
he is consolidating his power, silencing any opposition.
Exactly. And, you know, a free and independent press.
It's so vital for holding those in power accountable.
Absolutely.
Ensuring transparency. And when journalists are silenced, that's often an indication that
it shows
something is fundamentally wrong within a society. So this is a very worrying trend.
It is.
That could have some long-term consequences for El Salvador's democracy.
For sure. Meanwhile, Mexico.
Yeah, Mexico's entering a new era with the inauguration of President Sheinbaum, who is inheriting this seemingly intractable problem of this escalating cartel violence.
Right. She's actually unveiled a new security strategy that kind of departs from the more militarized approaches of her predecessors. Her focus is on civilian-led intelligence gathering, strengthening state police forces, and reducing these high-impact crimes.
So it's a more
targeted and
less confrontational
approach to combating organized crime.
Exactly.
Now that's a
it's a bold move.
It is a bold move,
especially considering how entrenched, how brutal the cartels are. But will it be effective in curbing this violence that has plagued Mexico?
That's the question. Yeah. I mean, it remains to be seen. I mean, Sheinbaum faces an immense challenge. Yeah. I mean, the success of this strategy is going to depend on a number of factors, including, you know, the cooperation of state and local authorities, the effectiveness of this intelligence gathering, and also the ability to address those underlying
those root causes,
those social and economic conditions that are fueling cartel recruitment and violence.
And speaking of cartels, the fighting between these rival Sinaloa cartel factions continues to rage.
It does. The death toll is rising. There's a surge in forced disappearances.
The situation in Sinaloa is just incredibly volatile. There are even reports that one of the factions, Los Chapitos, has formed an alliance with the Jalisco New Generation cartel.
And if that's true?
Yeah, if that's true. I mean, that could
extend the fighting to other parts of Mexico. Further destabilizing the country,
and that would be just a devastating development. Not just for the government,
but for all the innocent civilians.
All the innocent civilians caught in the crossfire.
That's right.
And unfortunately, the violence isn't limited to Sinaloa.
No,
we're seeing assassinations of government officials, attacks on religious leaders. A priest and peace activist was recently killed in Chiapas, for example.
It just shows how the cartels...
their growing sense of impunity.
Their sense of impunity.
And their willingness to...
and their willingness to target
anyone who
stands in their way.
It's a stark reminder of the human cost.
Absolutely.
Of this ongoing conflict. And as if the cartel violence wasn't enough.
And then on top of that...
Sheinbaum's government is also pushing ahead with this controversial judicial reform that has sparked concerns.
And critics are arguing that it's going to weaken judicial independence and erode the rule of law.
And this is coming at a time when...
when public trust in the government is already low. So it could...
it could further undermine... Confidence in Mexico's democratic institutions. It seems like Sheinbaum
is
facing this perfect storm of challenges. You've got escalating cartel violence, this controversial judicial reform, and a very skeptical public.
It's a daunting task.
It is. And it's going to require a very delicate balance of strength and diplomacy to navigate these waters.
For sure. It will depend on her ability to build trust, restore confidence, and really deliver some tangible results.
Well, from a president facing these immense challenges to a regime tightening its grip on power. Our deep dive now takes us to Nicaragua, where the Ortega regime continues its crackdown on any form of dissent.
It is systematically dismantling.
It seems like he's methodically eliminating any potential threats to his rule.
That's a pretty accurate assessment.
That's one by one.
Yeah, and
he's not even...
Yeah, he's not even...
He's trying to hide his intentions.
No, Nicaragua has been ranked last hood.
Oh, wow.
In the Chapultepec Index on freedom of expression for the 3rd consecutive year.
That's...
Yeah, now this index, just so you know, is a barometer of press freedom in the Americas. And Nicaragua's ranking is really a damning indictment of the regime's repressive tactics.
And the international community is not staying silent about these abuses.
The EU and the U.S. have imposed further sanctions on the regime.
They are citing human rights violations and the crackdown on civil society.
Right. Now, these sanctions are a strong message of condemnation, but it's unclear.
Right. Will it actually? Will they actually
have an impact on Ortega's behavior?
I mean, he's proven to be incredibly stubborn, resistant to outside pressure.
It seems like he's determined to maintain this grip on power, regardless of the cost.
Regardless of the cost.
To his people or his country's reputation.
That's right.
It's a heartbreaking situation.
It is.
For the people of Nicaragua. They're being denied. Their fundamental rights and freedoms, their voices are being silenced. And their hopes for a democratic future are fading.
Yeah, it's a tragic reminder.
That the fight for democracy and human rights is never truly over. And that we have to remain vigilant in defending these values, both at home and abroad.
Well, from a concerning erosion of democracy in Nicaragua to a horrifying escalation of gang violence, our deep dive now takes us to the Caribbean, where Haiti is facing a crisis of unimaginable proportions.
The level of gang violence in Haiti has reached a point where it's beyond just a security issue. It's a full-blown humanitarian catastrophe.
And the gangs have.
The gangs have essentially...
they've taken control
of
large parts.
Of large parts of the country.
And the government seems utterly powerless to stop them. I mean, the recent massacre in Pont Sunday by the Grand Grif gang, I mean, it's a horrifying testament to the level of brutality we're talking about here.
They killed at least 115 people, including women and children.
And this was just...
this was a calculated act of terrorism.
It was meant to send a message to anyone who dares to resist their rule.
And what's even more disturbing is that this was an act of retaliation
against the local
population
for daring to cooperate with these vigilante groups who have formed to protect themselves. So it's just this vicious cycle of violence.
It is.
This descent into chaos where the innocents are tracked.
They're trapped.
Between the brutality of the gangs and the ineffectiveness of the government.
It's a nightmare scenario.
It is.
And it's only getting worse.
And they're now...
they're launching these coordinated attacks in Port-au-Prince. Aiming to expand their control and further weaken the government.
And the UN has reported a surge in killings. And it feels like the country is on the brink of collapse.
It does. The situation is dire.
It is.
And the international community is struggling to find an effective response.
They're deploying foreign troops.
The deployment's ongoing. But funding remains a major challenge.
And without adequate resources, the mission will struggle to make a real difference. It feels like too little too late.
It does a bit, I
mean, the international community recognizes the need for intervention, but they haven't fully committed the necessary resources to make it successful.
And then you've got the political situation. Further complicating matters. There are these growing tensions between the Prime Minister and the Presidential Council. There are allegations of corruption, even threats.
Against the Prime Minister's safety.
Against the Prime Minister.
Wow. It's just a political drama playing out against the backdrop of this humanitarian catastrophe and all this infighting. And it just
powers
weakens. They just weaken the government's ability
to
respond to the crisis and provide support to the Haitian people.
That's right.
And as if the internal challenges weren't enough,
then
the Dominican Republic has stepped up deportations of undocumented Haitians, further adding to the humanitarian crisis.
It's a complex situation.
It is.
I mean, the Dominican Republic...
Yeah, I mean, they have their own...
Yeah, they have their own concerns.
Concerns about border security, about limited resources. These deportations.
But these mass deportations are only adding to the suffering of the Haitian people.
So many of whom are fleeing this violence, this persecution.
It's a tragic situation.
It is.
And it highlights how...
Yeah, it shows how...
You know, the instability in Haiti is impacting its neighbors. Creating these ripple effects.
Right, these ripple effects of...
migration, crimes, humanitarian need.
So we've journeyed from the Andes to the Amazon, from Central America to the Caribbean.
And there's this...
And this common thread.
This common thread.
Has emerged the fragility of peace, the vulnerability of democracy, and this interconnectedness of these crises.
You're absolutely right. What happens in one country rarely stays contained.
It does
within its borders. These crises
they're intertwined.
They are. They're intertwined, feeding off each other, creating this...
this complex web of challenges
this complex...
for the entire region.
That's right.
And as we delve deeper into this CrisisWatch report, I think we're confronted with this really stark reality.
Right.
The human cost.
Yeah, the human cost.
Of these crises.
That's right.
I mean, behind the headlines, behind the statistics are real people whose lives are being shattered by violence, displacement, poverty.
And that's why it's so important to understand these crises, to engage in meaningful dialogue, and to support those who are working to create a better future for the region.
So we'll be back in a moment.
All right.
To explore some potential paths forward.
Okay.
Some glimmers of hope amidst this seemingly endless cycle of crisis.
Okay.
But first, let's take a moment to acknowledge the weight of what we've learned and reflect on the resilience of the human spirit in the face of such adversity. I feel like we've highlighted some pretty deeply concerning situations playing out across Latin America and the Caribbean and I mean, from political turmoil and social unrest to the ever-present threat of violence, it's easy to feel overwhelmed.
It is.
By the sheer scale of these challenges facing the region.
Yeah, we haven't exactly painted a rosy picture.
No, we haven't.
But I think it's important to remember that amidst these crises, there are also glimmers of hope, these signs of resilience, and these individuals and organizations working to create a better future.
Right. And I think it's crucial to acknowledge those efforts and to explore those potential paths forward. For example, we haven't even touched on the growing influence of China in the region. I mean, they're investing heavily.
That's right. They are in infrastructure and trade, and that could have both positive and negative implications.
Yeah.
That's a whole
other deep dive waiting to happen. I mean, China's involvement in Latin America and the Caribbean is a significant factor that will undoubtedly shape the region's geopolitical landscape in the coming years. And it presents...
Yeah, it's both opportunities and risks.
Right.
Opportunities for economic development, but also these potential risks of dependency and exploitation.
So
it's a complex dynamic.
It is. It's a complex dynamic that requires careful consideration, a nuanced understanding of the potential consequences. And then, of course, you've got this... this looming threat of climate change, which poses... you know, an existential threat.
Yeah, especially for
many countries in the region.
Those in the Caribbean.
Particularly in the Caribbean. Vulnerable to rising sea levels and extreme weather events.
That's right.
The recent COP28 climate summit in Dubai really highlighted the urgency of this issue.
It did.
But it also exposed
the
deep divisions between developed and developing nations when it comes to
responsibility and the financing for climate action.
And Latin America and the Caribbean are on the front lines of this crisis, and they're going to need substantial support
from the international community to adapt to these impacts of climate change and transition to these more sustainable economies.
That's right.
Absolutely. I mean, the region is home to some of the world's most biodiverse ecosystems, and protecting these natural resources is essential.
It is. Not only for the
well-being.
Yeah, for the people who live there.
Of the people living there.
But also for the health of the planet.
But for the planet as a whole, it's a daunting task, but it's also an opportunity for innovation and collaboration.
Oh, that's right. There are some really inspiring examples of communities and organizations across the region working to develop these sustainable solutions, promote renewable energy, and protect biodiversity.
But these...
and these grassroots.
These grassroots efforts are so crucial.
So crucial.
But they need to be scaled up. They need to be supported by governments and international partners.
We need to see a shift.
We need to see a real shift from this short-term thinking to long-term planning.
From extractive industries to sustainable development.
That's right. From a focus on...
profits
to people, to people and the planet. And that's a call to action.
It is.
A reminder that we all have a role to play in shaping a more just and equitable and sustainable future for Latin America and the Caribbean.
That's right.
So as we conclude this deep dive, I want to leave you with this final thought.
Okay.
With so many challenges and opportunities before them, what will be the most crucial factors?
What will those factors be in shaping the future of this dynamic region?
Will it be the actions of governments and institutions?
The resilience of communities.
The resilience of communities.
The influence of external powers, or a combination of all these?
I
mean, the answer...
the answer is complex.
It is a complex one. But one thing's for certain.
One thing is for certain. The future of Latin America. And the Caribbean is not predetermined.
No.
It is being shaped right now by the choices we make and the actions we take.
So as you continue to learn and engage with the events unfolding in this vital region, remember that your understanding, your voice, your actions can make a difference. Stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.
That's it.
That's it.
That's all for our deep dive into the October 2024 CrisisWatch report for Latin America and the Caribbean. We hope you found it informative.
Thought-provoking.
Thought-provoking.
And maybe even...
for a little bit inspiring.
Until next time.
Keep
diving deep